Good afternoon, class. Hope everyone's doing well so far. Today we're going to talk about genetics. We talked about it a little bit last week in the previous section, but we're moving on to the new section where we're going more in depth on genetics. That's the goal for this week. Today, though, let's just focus on what we remember from last week. Okay? So, let's have volunteers share with us what you remember from last week about genes. Anything that you can recall. It doesn't matter if it's small or big. Any little bit helps. Okay? Genes are made up of sequences of DNA. Alright, that's a good one. Genes are passed from parents to offspring. Okay? Of course. Every parent has their genes. That's what they're made up of. They pass them on to their offspring. Okay? That's why, kids look like their parents. They're just passing on genes. Alright? Next, genes provide instructions for making proteins, which determine the structure and function of each cell. So genes not only make us who we are physically, but also how we run internally. Okay, we all run the same, but there's going to be little tweaks. That's why there's some genetic defects in certain people. It's all because of the genes that are passed on. Some genes have mutations that cause those differences. Those things just happen. So each gene is responsible for those functions of those cells and also what they create. So we have genes that make skin cells. We have genes that make heart cells. Anything like that. Those are what the genes are doing. Okay. Importantly, Gregor Mendel. Okay, he discovered genes. He discovered them by working with pea plants, going from the parents to the offspring, seeing which ones were taller, which ones were shorter, things like that. Okay, he used pea plants because they're relatively quick to grow. Doesn't have to wait generations, like long time, like humans, where each generation is about 20 years before people start having kids, and you gotta wait for them to grow up and compare and contrast the parent with the offspring. So use pea plants because it's a little bit faster. Just using them. Okay. So that's great. I'm glad you guys remember all that. Okay, it's difficult to remember everything, but as long as you remember some things, it helps. Because when we move on to the next section, any little bit of information that you can recall will help you with the next section. And it'll clarify anything that you don't remember from previously. Alright? And last but not least, there are dominant and recessive genes. Okay? Remember, the dominant genes are the ones that stand out more. They, like eye color. Let's say brown eyes are dominant, green eyes are recessive. Those brown eyes are going to show up more often than those green eyes. Okay? So there's dominant and recessive. Dominant stand out, recessive are just there. They're sitting back, they're relaxing. When they are needed, they'll pop up, but those dominant ones are pretty much going to take over. Okay, so let's move on. Let's focus on how I look. Alright? Let's have volunteers tell me, or tell the class actually, what I look like. Okay, it could be, any physical description about me. Okay? I have a green shirt. Okay? That's what I'm wearing right now. I'm wearing a green shirt. I got blue jeans on. Okay? I have black hair. I have a beard. And I'm wearing a watch. Okay? Those are all physical descriptions of what I look like. Okay? So now let me ask you, are those physical descriptions phenotypes or genotypes? Okay? Well, let's find out. Okay, the phenotypes are the set of observable characteristics of an individual resulting from the interaction of its genotype with the environment. Okay, so for example, hair color and eye color. So you guys said I have black hair. Okay, that's hair color. So that means that all those descriptions that you listed are my phenotypes. Now, you don't really consider clothing or accessories as a phenotype when you're describing like an animal or just humans just in general, but I use that as an example. Those are physical descriptions. Even though it's not necessarily what I'm made of, it's what I'm wearing. Okay? It's a physical thing. It's something that you can observe and see. Alright, so that's a phenotype. A genotype is the genetic constitution of an individual organism. All right. So the genotype is, for example, genes that make up physical characteristics. So it's all those phenotypes, but it's genetic material. It's genetic makeup. Okay, phenotype is what is showing. The genotype is what creates that phenotype. Okay, so it's in the it's backstage. Okay, you can't see it. You can only see it through looking at a microscopic level, where you break down each protein. Okay, but phenotype is boom, you see it right then and there. All right. So let's prepare for for this next section. This is what we're going to work on for this week. Okay, before we move on tomorrow, this is what you guys need to do today and for homework. Okay, right now I want you guys to work in your table groups, go over the key terms that are listed in the study guide that I provided for you guys. Look through the textbook, look at the definitions, read them out loud to your table group. Make sure everyone understands it to the best of your ability. Okay, write it down on your study guide or in your notebook. Write down those definitions. Okay, it's important to remember those. You're not always going to have your textbook with you, but if you have your notebook, you're going to be fine. You can always refer back to it later. Okay, so read them, write them down, look in your study guide. I have them right here for you as well. I'll leave this up for you guys for the rest of the period. Just have fun with it. Make sure you guys actually do the work though, okay? If the definitions don't make sense, raise your hand. I'm going to be walking by the rest of the period, making sure you guys understand it. If I'm busy with another student and you have a question on it, just read the whole paragraph where that definition comes from. Okay, those context clues from that paragraph are going to help you understand that definition a little bit more. All right, so let's get started on that and let's see what we can do.